Hello everybody, my name is Fragile Toaster and welcome to another episode of Copy Review. That's right guys, and today I will be reviewing Amazing Spider-Man issue 18. And this is of course part 6 of 7 of Spider-Verse. So that means in the next issue the Spider-Verse will end completely. So that means after Spider-Verse is over there won't be any more stories of Spider-Verse, or I do have one though, but I have a Spider-Verse stories, but that's like a tie-in to Secret Wars. If you don't know what Secret Wars is, you can check out my other comic reviews episode. But whatever, let's just review Amazing Spider-Man issue 18. So in episode 16, if you remember, 2 issues ago, we found out that Ben was living, or we found that Ben was living in that prison that Silk was, and we go over to the homeland of sorry. Oh God, why am I beginning to sorry. We go over to the homeland of the Inheritors, and as you can see, they have Spider-Girl's little brother here, and they're going to make a sacrifice of this little brother of Spider-Girl. And then we go over to Spider-Man and the rest of the other Spider-Mans, and Peter is confused, and yeah, he is really confused because he doesn't understand why Ben is here, and Ben actually, or his Uncle Ben, or whatever, Uncle Ben explains what happened, that he was with Peter Parker, or his Peter Parker. He was coming by into the laboratory, and then Ben, instead of Peter Parker getting bit by a spider, it was Uncle Ben got bit instead of Peter Parker. And then we found out that Ben made a costume, he became a hero, but then everything changed when in this universe, but everything, what am I saying? But everything changed for Ben when his family, or that means Aunt May and Peter Parker, was killed by the Emerald Elf, as he calls him in this universe. So the Green Goblin in his universe is called the Emerald Elf, or something like that. So he gave up being Spider-Man, and then he went to Ezekiel so he can be in the bunker or something to spend his rest of his life, because his family died and he didn't want to be Spider-Man anymore. And Superior Spider-Man is like how he wonders how this nuclear explosion happened. Well, Uncle Ben explains that in this universe, instead of Dr. Octopus succeeding in an experiment, he actually failed, and it made everything explode. So there's no one left on this planet. Everyone is dead, and they exploded. What am I saying? They exploded, or Dr. Octopus made like a nuclear explosion. So the city, or the whole world, I guess, became radioactive. And Superior Spider-Man is shocked about that because, as we all know, Superior Spider-Man is actually Doc Ock in Peter Parker's body. And then Peter Parker, or Spider-Man, or our Spider-Man, is trying to figure out this message Jessica Drew sent, or Spider-Woman. And then Silk goes, and then Spider-Gwen and Silk are going to rescue Spider-Woman, and then we see Spider UK and Spider-Man India talking, and Spider-Man India is like, how is it possible that there are more Spider-Men? And he thought he was the only one, but and Spider UK convinces Spider India. And then we see that the Superior Spider-Man takes those papers and reads them, and then what happens is we see Anna Maria in his his arm, and what Spider-Man says is, isn't that Anna Maria? And then Superior Spider-Man realizes that the Spider-Man, or the Spider-Man he has been working for, is not from the past, but he's from the future. So Superior Spider-Man figure out that Spider-Man is from the future, so he realized that in the future Peter Parker came back and took his body back. So yeah, that's a big surprise. And then Spider-Girl comes in and takes the paper, and she trying to read what it says, and she kind of understands. And then Spider-Man calls Silks, Spider-Gwen, and Spider-Woman. And if you remember, Spider-Woman got captured from, or it's confusing. It's really confusing me as what's happening. Spider-Woman is in the Inheritors homeworld, so yeah. And if you remember, Spider-Man will get captured by another Spider-Woman in a pirate ship, and Silk and Spider-Man Gwen came here to rescue her. And then Silk, one of the pirates actually destroyed the teleport device, so now they can't go back to Spider-Man. And then we go over to Scarlet Spider and Ultimate Black Widow. And if you remember, in the last issue, we actually found out that Ben Reilly sacrificed himself to save them. And we remember that Scarlet Spider was pissed off about this situation, so he went to the Inheritors homeworld to kill him. And then we go over to the Inheritors, and they sense that Scarlet Spider is here, so they go out, and yeah. And then Spider-Man calls Scarlet Spider, but he does not even listen to Spider-Man. So, and then all of a sudden he just becomes this monster. And Spider-Man, he's not happy about that situation. And then he tries to talk to Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider, and Spider-Man 2099 tells Spider-Man that they're stuck and they don't know where to go. And then we go over, and then Spider-Man talks to Ultimate Black Widow, and she's okay and stuff like that. So yeah, and let me see if I remember anything. Or Spider-Man is telling all the Spider-Mans to come back here or go to the Inheritors homeworld, so that they can have this big battle against the Inheritors. And he also tells that to Miles Morales too. So now the Spider-Mans are going to kill the Inheritors and something like that, destroy them. And then we see the battle between Scarlet Spider, or just the other, as I call it. Or Scarlet Spider has become this monster, as you can see here, and he begins to fight the Inheritors. And then we see that what is his name? What is his name? Hang on a sec. No. Oh yeah, his name is Solus, and he gets killed by Scarlet Spider like immediately, and Mullen is like shocked because they didn't think that no one could kill their father, but Scarlet Spider actually did it. And then we see that Mullen kills Scarlet Spider, or we don't know if Scarlet Spider is dead. And then we see that Spider-Gwen and Silk and Spider-Man got away, and then but then as they think they're safe, a bunch of goblins comes in to destroy them, and yeah. Then Spider-Man convinces Uncle Ben to join and be a superhero again, but Uncle Ben is like no, and then all of a sudden Superior Spider-Man comes in and tells him to be a superhero, and yeah, and an amazing speech. And then Uncle Ben is like, he's right, or he tells Superior Spider-Man that he's right, and then he puts on the costume, and then every Spider-Man, or all the Spider-Man are going to the Inheritors world to fight once for all, and that's where the story ends. And now we go over to the Spider-Man 2099 story, and this is, I should remind you that this is a Spider-Verse time, so whatever is happening in Spider-Verse, it's happening at the same time in the Spider-Man 2099 story. And if you remember, Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider was trying to get to the safe zone, but the safe zone was destroyed, if you remember, so they need to figure out where the others are, and and Lady Spider is kind of like, she's shocked about this situation, and then they find the Spider robot, and if you remember, they find it, and Lady Spider tells Spider-Man 2099 that they can bring it to her universe. So yeah. So we go over to Lady Spider's universe, and the year is 1895. So yeah, she's from a past, or a universe from a past, or something. What am I saying these days? You know what? I'm just tired. That's why I can't speak today. And then we see Norman Osborn, or as he's called, the Green Goblin. So yeah, and so Lady Spider and Spider-Man 2099 goes to her laboratory so they can fix the Spider-Man robot, and then Spider-Man 2099 gets a call from Spider-Man, if you remember, and Spider-Man told all the Spider-Mans that were across the universe to tell them to come here because they were going to have a fight with the Inheritors. So Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider needs to hurry up and build this thing very fast so that they can go to the Inheritors' homeworld and do battle with them. But then all of a sudden Harry Osborn comes in, and yeah, shit gets real. And then we see the Sinister Six coming in. We have Green Goblin, Vulture, Mysterio, Dr. Octopus, Electro, and Kraven. So you don't see Kraven here because, yeah. And then they start doing battle. The Sinister Six versus Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider. And then we see that Spider-Man 2099 can actually wins, and he like his pulse. And Green Goblin thinks he's dying because Spider-Man 29 did that, but Spider-Man 2099 says that's just a pill to get him to sleep. And then we see Dr. Octopus fighting Lady Spider, and then Spider-Man 2099, we see Spider-Man 2099 tries to rescue Lady Spider, but the Electro shocks him at time. And then we see that and then Spider-Man 2099 gets thrown out, and we see Kraven, and he busts down the window and gives Kraven a good old punch. And we see that Lady Spider is hiding behind the Spider-Mech head, and we see that the Electro fires electricity at the head, and then every body parts of the Spider-Man activates, and then just punches the villains like it ain't nobody's business. And it's so Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider won the fight, but as we see, Norman Osborn, after the fight with Spider-Man 2099, and then he shoots Harry Osborn. And then we see that Spider-Man 2099 and Lady Spider and Spider-Man are going to the homeworld of the Inheritors so that they can do battle against the Inheritors. And then we go into another story. This is another story about Spider-Girl. This takes place after, you know, that they discovered that Uncle Ben was here. And Spider-Girl is pretty shocked because, you know, Spider-Girl